On March 19, 2004, 17-year-old Brianna Maitland was standing at the edge of adulthood. She had just passed her GED exam and was filled with anticipation for what came next: college, independence, and new beginnings. That afternoon, she left her mother's home in East Franklin to spend time with friends before heading to her evening shift at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery. Driving her pale green 1985 Oldsmobile, she set out on roads she had traveled many times before. It was the kind of crisp Vermont evening that should have ended in nothing more remarkable than a late-night drive home. But Brianna would never make it home. Somewhere between leaving her friend's house and finishing her shift, something happened that changed everything. The next time anyone would see her car, it would be abandoned in a scene that looked less like an accident and more like a chilling warning. The following morning, a Vermont state trooper came across something odd on Route 118. Brianna's Oldsmobile had been backed up against an old, weathered barn, its rear bumper pressed tightly into the wood siding as if it had been deliberately placed there. The driver's door was left unlocked, and the headlights were faintly glowing. It wasn't the typical wreck of a teenager who had lost control of her car. It looked staged, unnatural. Inside the car, Brianna's wallet, driver's license, and 2 uncashed paychecks were left untouched. Outside, scattered on the ground, lay her water bottle and an unlit cigarette. Yet there was no sign of Brianna. The eerie image of that lone car against the barn would soon become one of Vermont's most infamous and haunting mysteries. At first, not everyone understood the urgency. Brianna was independent and sometimes stayed with friends, so it didn't immediately spark alarm. But her mother, Kelly, knew something was wrong. Brianna had been excited about her future, and she wasn't the type to vanish without a word. As the hours dragged into days, her absence grew more chilling. When Kelly finally learned about the car and the way it had been discovered, panic turned to dread. Why had no one reported it sooner? Why had the car been found in such a bizarre position, with her belongings left behind? The abandoned Oldsmobile was more than an abandoned vehicle. It was a silent cry for help. Detectives scoured the area, but what they found only deepened the mystery. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading away, no drag marks in the dirt. It was as if Brianna had stepped out of her car and dissolved into the night air. The barn itself offered no clues, only the unsettling presence of a car that didn't belong there. Investigators turned their attention to Brianna's circle of friends and acquaintances. They spoke to co-workers, family members, and people she had recently crossed paths with. What emerged was a complex picture. Brianna was a bright, determined girl, but she had also become entangled with people who lived on the edge, individuals who weren't always trustworthy. Every interview seemed to raise new possibilities, but no concrete answers. Almost immediately, theories began to swirl through the quiet towns of Franklin County. Some believed Brianna had been abducted by someone she knew, a person she would have stopped for on that lonely road. Others suggested she may have crossed paths with dangerous people involved in drugs or violence, people with motives to make her disappear. But the most disturbing whispers were that her disappearance had been staged, perhaps as retribution, perhaps to silence her, or perhaps to cover up something darker. Each rumor seemed plausible, yet none provided real evidence. For investigators, it was like trying to grab smoke. For her family, it was a torment of endless whats. Weeks turned into months, and the silence around Brianna's case became deafening. Search teams scoured forests, rivers, and open fields. Helicopters flew low over Vermont's rugged landscape. Volunteers stapled missing posters to telephone poles, their hands raw from the cold. Yet despite all the effort, not a single trace of Brianna was ever found. Her family clung to hope, but the weight of unanswered questions pressed down harder each day. Each phone call from detectives that ended with no new leads carved deeper wounds. Brianna's absence left not only a hole in her family's life but also a chilling reminder to the community. Someone out there knew the truth, and they weren't talking. As the years passed, Brianna's disappearance became a legend of sorts in Vermont, a story locals whispered about in hushed voices. Some swore they saw her walking along highways or in distant towns. Others believed she had been taken into human trafficking. None of the tips ever led to Brianna. The barn where her car was discovered became a grim landmark. Visitors would drive by slowly, some leaving flowers, others snapping photos. For her family, it was unbearable, a constant reminder of where the trail had gone cold. Every anniversary brought renewed coverage, renewed speculation, and renewed pain, but never closure. Nearly 2 decades later, the case of Brianna Maitland remains unsolved. Her family still pushes for answers, demanding attention to a case that has too often slipped into silence. Investigators say the case is still active, but the years have buried it beneath layers of rumors, theories, and heartbreak. What happened on that March night in Vermont? Did Brianna vanish willingly, pulled into a life far from home, or was she taken by someone determined to erase her from the world? Until the truth is revealed, Brianna's disappearance will remain one of New England's darkest and most enduring mysteries, a haunting story of a girl who drove into the night and never returned. Before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime. Share this with friends who follow these cases. The more awareness, the closer we get to answers.